Hello and welcome to the Ken McElroy Show. I'm your host, Danille, here with Ken.
Hey, everybody. What's going on?
What is up?
Hey, your hair looks nice today.
Thanks. Inside joke. Anyways, so we're leaving for DC in a few days.
Yes, I know. I'm excited.
You were nominated for an award.
I was.
What was the award?
The Horatio Algier Award. So we're going back for the awards.
I know.
Should be good. Now, I think there's 20 people that actually got it this year, so it's actually for next year, but we have to attend this year, or we get to attend this year. So I'm excited to see what it's all about.
Yep, be very fun. So also, just to remind everybody to like the video, it really helps us. Please subscribe to the channel. We do these every Monday. We're just trying to give our insights to you. Secondly, is we have another webinar scheduled on April 18th at 5 o'clock Arizona time with Rocky McKay. And Rocky runs assisted living homes. So what he does is he takes residential homes and he turns them into assisted living communities for about 5 or 6 residents. They each pay about $6 to $8 grand a month for a room.
Yeah, it's not.
And
it's
he
not,
has
yep.
some medical, some medical practitioners and things there. It's a great option for you. It might be a different option than an Airbnb, especially for those of you that have properties in HOAs, because HOAs usually accept these because these are long-term residences. They're just signing year leases, but it's under like an assisted living umbrella, and he's killing it.
Yeah, so it's not like your normal. When you think of assisted living, you think of these big, like institutional type buildings. It's not that at all. These are homes that you drive by in a neighborhood that you would never know are there. And, he's doing 40, 50, 60,000 a month in some of these houses that he's got. And now it's a whole business, and it's not an easy business. There's caregivers and nursing and chefs and things. So there are expenses, but it's an interesting idea for single family.
Yeah. So make sure you go to kenmcroy.com/webinar and sign up for that. April 18th at 5. It's totally free. You guys can ask Rocky a bunch of questions. So I'm really excited They're personal friends of ours, and I'm excited to have him on as a guest. And I have to read this comment because it's so funny. But Ren2 is asking, is anyone going to get slapped at the awards ceremony?
Oh, wow.
So, that was pretty good. So anyways.
That is a good one.
I hope not. But so today we're talking about, we get a lot of questions on, should I sell my house right now?
Yeah.
So I think everyone is sitting on a bunch of equity and all they're thinking is, should I sell? And
this
so
is a good one.
Yeah, we wanted to address that. We get asked that all the time recently, honestly, from people. And I think it's something we need to go over the pros and cons of.
Yep, I agree. This is a question that we get multiple times a day.
Yes. And, I guess when we start, what we normally ask people is, why are you in the market? So are you a flipper? Are you renting it out? Is it your primary home? Like, what is your motivation? What is your goal?
Yeah, well, I think if you back up a little bit, I get it. Like, people have lots of equity in their house. The challenge that they have, and what we're hearing, because if you start asking questions of the people that are asking us, they can't match what they live in because everything's gone up. So in other words, let's say they bought a house for $500 grand. It's now worth $1 million, let's say. Well, they have to spend $1 million to be able to be in a similar home that they're in. And, they bought a home, let's say at 500. So that's what's trapped most people is. And so I always ask that question. First of all, what are you going to do next? And, where do you want to be? Do you want to be in the same neighborhood? Are you relocating? Because that's a big differentiation of the answer. If somebody's moving from, let's say, California, where homes are those kinds of prices, and they're moving to Arizona and they're paying half, I say do it.
Right. Or if you're like a boomer where you have this big house and you've been wanting to downsize into like a 2-bedroom condo or something, you can do that as well, because maybe the money that you made will then pay cash for your next place.
This is my point. Yeah. So a lot of people have a lot of equity because the market's been very, very good for them. And so the question is, what are you going to do with it? And are you going to adjust your lifestyle or not? Because most people, they move to something typically bigger, more space, more yards. They have more kids, whatever it is. And so those things cost more. But if you're on the tail end of it, let's say, and you're willing to make that sacrifice, then it can be very good. You could be sitting on that cash. The problem is the cash.
Right, and we'll get to that in a second.
The cash is the problem.
Yeah, the cash is the problem. But okay, so so you're looking at why, right? And also, if it is your primary home, you also have to ask yourself what interest rate you have, because say that you're selling something for 5 and you're buying something else that's a little cheaper at 4. If you have a much higher interest rate, it might be about the same monthly payment.
It's a heck of a point. Yeah, I mean, we've been preaching the interest rates. We've been preaching, if you've got a 2.5 or a 3%, let's say fixed mortgage, you're not getting that now, and so the cost of funds are more. Right. And the Fed has said that they're going to continue.
Well, we were just looking at mortgages last week, and it was like, what, 4.7 for a primary and 5.5 for an investment. So they've definitely went up a lot since last year.
So your cost of borrowing's gone up. As we all know, the Fed has, they said that they're going to keep doing it.
Yeah. Yep. Now, if you're a flipper, then it probably does make sense, because this is a great time for a flipper to flip the home, right? Because prices are high.
Yeah. Well, flippers typically use hard money, and they typically are turning something quickly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep, exactly. But we always tell people, you can't really time the market. People try to really time the market, but you really can't do that. So.
Yep. Yeah, we have a technical issue here. I'm sorry.
What do you need?
No, it's you, babe. What do you need?
No, the charger.
Okay. Sorry, guys. Danille's.
My computer's gonna die. That would be not good. Jerry, do you have an extension cord on that?
So the timing of the market. So I'm going to talk about that while Danille's not here. So one of the things that obviously none of us can predict is that I know we're heading into a big time affordability problem. And as we all know, prices have gone up. Prices on rent, prices on houses, and certainly now on the mortgages as well. And we don't know what's going to happen next. So we never do, So just be very, very, very careful. That's the other piece, is if you bite off something big and significant, higher property taxes, higher income taxes, or potentially, depending on where you live, higher mortgage payment. You better make sure that you can cover that through reserves and or potentially through whatever it is that you're making. And so that's the biggest thing. I just had this conversation with a friend of mine the other day, where he's actually selling a home in the Pacific Northwest, like $1 million, and he's buying something in Austin at 1.8, and his property taxes are $28,000. His property taxes in the Northwest are $6,000. So, so now he's got a higher payment and a higher property tax number and all that kind of stuff. So you got to always solve to that. And I started digging into it a little bit, and he's got some businesses that if the market corrects, could be his income could seriously be affected. Right?
Yep.
You okay now?
Yeah. My computer was going to die. I would not be able to communicate with anyone, but luckily we're good now.
Okay.
Jerry to the rescue.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry.
All right. So I guess the next big issue that you look at when you look at people that want to sell their home is like what you were getting at earlier, is what are you going to do with the money? Now, if you're paying off a mortgage and you can take the rest of the money, like I said, and buy something smaller with cash or almost with cash, that kind of makes sense. But okay, so now you're sitting on $400,000 or whatever it is. What are you going to do with it?
So let's look at that 400 grand. So first of all, let's say you have 400 grand of equity. The first thing is you're going to be taxed on it.
Only if it's your investment, right? It's different if it's the primary or not.
Yeah. Well, there is tax on above your basis.
Okay.
So there is going to be a tax. Now, obviously, we're not CPAs. We can ask Eric this question directly about the difference between a primary and an investment. But the government's going to want their pound of flesh. Trust me.
Yes.
They're not going to let you sell your house for a lot more and then not take a piece.
Yep.
So you do have that. Then the other real big issue is going to be, I think, we're heading into stagflation. So, and obviously we all know we're in a pretty big inflationary environment. And why this is important now is, as you know, inflation's been somewhere between, let's call it 7 and 8%. So if you got $100 grand in cash today and it continues, then it buys, let's say, $93,000 or $92,000 worth of stuff in a year. So as things go up and your cash doesn't really make any money, your purchasing power goes down. You have the same amount of cash. So that 400 grand is really important to look at. One, you're going to have tax. Two, you're going to have inflation. We know this, and even the Fed is coming out and they finally said it's. I guess it's not transitory. So, and so you have those kinds of things. And so for me, I'm always trying to move money, and we call it velocity of money. Money needs to be moved, and savings, heading into savings in the next few years is going to be a real problem for people. So people that are on fixed rate incomes and people that have high savings, even though we need savings and we need some reserves, I get that. But you just got to know that if it's in the bank making less than 1% and inflation's at 7 or 8, you're going backwards financially, period. You might be comforted by the fact that your statement says how much there is, but cars are going up, food's going up, gas is going up, all that stuff is a problem. So to me that's the biggest thing. You need to have a plan for that money.
And we have a lot of comments going on about like the recession and if there's going to be a recession and what the recession means. And I think Michael, he said something interesting and I thought it was good. He said, if there's a recession, who's to say property values will fall significantly, if at all? Not every recession is an 08, 09. And I thought that was a really good comment because I think when everyone thinks of a recession, they think of 08 and they think, okay, properties are going to be half the value, whatever. Not every recession necessarily hits the housing market, and it doesn't necessarily hit it like 08 hit. 08 was a recession of the housing market. Like everything started with bad mortgages that led to the crash of the real estate market, which then led to a recession. But most recession, this recession is not necessarily revolving around the real estate market.
It doesn't appear to be. So actually, here's something that might blow your guys' minds. If you look at Okay, so first of all, stagflation is, stay with me here, high inflation continually, low or negative GDP, which is what we have, and obviously raising prices, and high unemployment. That's what we have. So now there's two measures of unemployment. The one that you get in the media is not accurate. So go to, they measure what's called U3. If you Google U6, then you'll see all the displaced workers and all the people, all the everyone else. So it's beyond belief. All you got to do is, what's the difference between U3 and U6? Just Google it. You'll see. It'll blow your mind. U6 is the right number. So if you look at that number, I think we're right around 8%. So why is this important? This happened in the 70s. Mm-hmm. And in the 70s, we did not have a real estate crash.
Right.
So it was more around oil. So does this sound familiar? So now there were other reasons, but let's just say in the 70s. So if you take a look at the price of a home in the 70s, guess what it was? $11,700. I think it was like $11,700. That was the average price of a
Wow.
home in 1970. So that's what inflation does, by the way. Second, guess what the price of a home was in the 80s? $47,000. So now this is a 10-year period during stagflation. Prices went up. Housing prices went up during that period of time. Now, are we in stagflation? A lot of people would debate this, but I think we are, and for those reasons. And if the definition of stagflation is that, and I think the government and the Fed is freaking out, and they only have two options: slow down the economy or rise interest rates. Both of those slow growth. So, we're heading into a period of, I think, pretty high inflation, which kind of goes to this point. I don't think real estate is going to crash from a price standpoint as a result of, because it's very different. I went through 08. 08 was rough. What was happening is you could fog a mirror and get a loan. You didn't have to have income.
Right.
So, those were defaults. It's very different now.
Sear on YouTube says stagflation is the worst. There's an interesting question from Mike on YouTube, Mike99. So, and a lot of people are commenting. So he just bought a second home last year, and he's looking to sell his first home to pay off his new home just for the security during uncertain times. And he wants an opinion on that.
Well, it kind of, we kind of just talked about it. First of all, I like to accumulate real estate.
Well, I almost did this.
Yeah, I know.
Because of you, I didn't. So when we, first started dating, I was living in a condo and I was buying a home. And what I had always been taught is you don't want debt. So you want to pay off, you want to sell the condo, put that money towards the home, whatever. And then you're the one that told me, why would you do that when you could rent the condo?
Well, let's just do the math. I think that's better. Okay.
Well,
so how much was it worth that you were going to sell it for?
Well, I paid about $160 for it. I probably was going to sell it for about $200 would be my guess.
What's it worth today?
$350.
Okay.
And the rents initially that I was getting for it were, I want to say it was like $850 a month, if I remember right. Yeah. And now I'm getting $1,850 a month.
What she did was she put a credit line against it, so she could use cash out, refi, tax free, and bought the next one.
Well, that was on my third one, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was on the third one. But the second one, I did have money saved their down payment. So I was in the exact same position as you, Mike, and my head was in the same place yours was, is like, I just don't want any debt, and I just got to put money towards this. But it would have been such a mistake for me to do that. As long as your first house is in a place somebody would want to rent, you'd be surprised the amount of money you could get. And interestingly, that rent might pay your whole mortgage on your new house or a significant part of the mortgage on your new house. And over time, it's probably going to be silly for you to sell it. And
again, going back to inflation, whether you guys believe we're in inflation or stagflation is kind of irrelevant. We're definitely in inflationary period. Inflation helps debtors. So if you're in debt on that house, it sounds like you might be, that's going to help you because you're going to pay it off with cheaper dollars later. So just by having a hard asset, that is going to go up with inflation. What everybody's concerned about is deflation, of course. But I don't see anything that points to a deflationary time.
Yeah. And that brings us to our next point on if you're thinking about selling your home. And Mike, this is for you too, is rents are probably going to go up more over time.
Not probably.
Rents are going to go up over time. You obviously study this all the time. I've been looking at this. We don't have enough housing. Vacancy rates are at about 4% right now, which is unheard of. So your rents are going to go up over time. So like I said, 5 years ago, I was getting $850 a month on my condo. Now I'm getting $1,850 a month. And so
$1,000 a month more.
Right.
That's what she's getting 5 years later.
Right. And if you think about it, I'm probably making about $1,500 a month. And so if you really looked at the $200,000 I was going to sell that for, plus the tax burden, and then what I'm getting monthly for it, it's going to make sense long term for me to hold it.
Well, the key word is long term. So if you guys are looking at rents from month to month, then it'll drive you nuts. But if you look at rent from year to year, just Google what have the average rents been from year to year, and you'll see there are some years that have gone like this, like from the 70s to the 80s during stagflation. Rents went like this. Then they kind of flattened out in some years, but and occupancy did too. And then every administration that came in, and I think Bush was pushing home ownership. Those people are moving out of rentals and into single families. So you got to take a look at the policies of the government. That definitely affects where rent goes. But right now, the facts are the facts. And the facts are we have 5.5 million housing units short, period. Just Google it. I did a couple of videos on this. We are short housing. For the last 10 years, we have not been building housing for all kinds of reasons. And the country is growing. So we have a lot of people. We have high demand, low supply. That's where we are today. In addition to that, we have these supply chain shocks, and we have all these other things that are happening. Rent is going up, guys. Now, there are markets, of course, like San Francisco or Seattle or Portland, where that might be the exception. But generally, you're going to see something that's trending up over time. Yes. We're heading to a renter nation, guys. Like it or not.
We are doing that. Yep. Crazy Mouse is asking a good question. They're saying, what's your take on competing against companies like BlackRock and other buying homes sight unseen over the asking price?
Well, so good luck on competing against those guys. I actually had BlackRock trying to buy my company. And so I'm intimately familiar with them and a lot of these other big companies. Here's the thing that you need to understand. BlackRock has, like all companies like this, they're managing other people's money, OPM. They're managing your money. So you might not even know it. So when you put money into a pension or an insurance company or, whatever it is, 401k, that money's managed. So the issue that they have is the same issue you have. There's too much money that they have to place. And so what they're trying to do, if you really think about it, is they're trying to hedge inflation too. So if they have, let's say, $1 billion, and that's not by any stretch of imagination a stretch. They actually have way more than that. Let's say they have $1 billion that they need to invest this week. Seriously. That's a problem because every moment that $1 billion is sitting somewhere making 1% or 2%, and it could be, let's say, in an inflation-adjusted vehicle, whatever it is. It could be gold, could be silver, could be oil, it could be real estate. It doesn't really matter. So at the money management level, you're looking at that. You're looking at how much money, and that's the way you should be looking at your own savings. So the issue people have, savers are really getting hurt right now from this inflation, and it doesn't appear to be going away. So BlackRock has the same issue. So if I'm BlackRock, I'm doing the exact same thing. In fact, we're doing this. We're buying real estate. Now we're making sure that it's covering from a cash flow standpoint. But we're buying real estate at much higher prices than we were a year ago, 2 years ago. We have 2 deals in escrow right now, 422 units. And it's rents are going up, cost to build these things are going up. So we're buying them well below replacement costs with rents that are trending up. So that's what BlackRock's looking at. So, you can be upset at the label BlackRock, but really what you should be looking at is why. Why, and which is, I guess, what the question is. But, why would a big investment company sit on cash right now in this inflationary economy and with everything else happening? We haven't even seen the inflation issues from the war yet. Now, we have seen sanctions, and we have seen rising oil prices, which they're blaming on Russia. But we can go into that separately. But the real issue, I tell you what the real issue we have, guys. If you really want to be curious about a topic, which I'm thinking about doing a video on, go look at go look at petrodollars. So I don't want to digress too far on this, but this is a big issue. So in the 70s, Nixon made a deal with Saudi Arabia that said all oil should be traded in petrodollars. Okay, basically U.S. dollars. That's all it is. So China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, everything's traded in U.S. dollars. Period. Just go look. And what happened is with this war, now Russia is saying we won't take U.S. dollars anymore. We'll take the yuan, or we'll take other types of currencies. So really, the issue we're going to have is we're going to have something on the U.S. dollar. We're going to have potentially a devaluing of the U.S. dollar as a result of this oil issue, because this is a big issue coming.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah, another video. But anyway,
I went off on a topic.
So make sure you guys like the video if you're watching. It really helps us out if you like and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out the webinar I'm doing with Rocky McKay. As I was saying before, he takes residential homes and turns them into assisted living homes, getting $6,000 to $8,000 per room. It's a great option, alternative to Airbnb, especially if you're in an HOA community that doesn't allow Airbnb. Typically, they do allow this. So it's kenmcelroy.com/webinar, April 18th. It's free at 5 o'clock. So Kim had a really good question on YouTube. She said, is the government going to take over the rental market to make it more affordable?
So, well, they already are. So that's what rent control is. So they're going to do it in ways that they are going to do it. So this is a big hot topic. So I love the question. So now, is the federal government get involved? No, I don't believe anytime soon. Now, they might get involved with programs like Section 8 or other kinds
rental
of things.
assistance.
Yeah, rental assistance for sure. And right now it's at the state level. States are concerned about affordability. States are concerned about homelessness, and I think that you're going to definitely start to see more and more programs around rent caps and rent control and things like that. Even though we all know that those have not shown to work, because I have a saying that smart money goes where it's treated well, and so do people. So money is going to flow where it's treated the best, and that's what you would do. That's what I do. That's what everyone does. So as cities, states, counties get more and more tight on things, and they try to solve something that is a problem, then money moves to other areas and other places, and then it creates bubbles in those places. So that's how it works. And so yes, the government's definitely going to be involved, but I think it's going to be on a case-by-case basis.
Yes. So we're going to start answering some of our premium questions. For those of you that are not premium members, head on over to kenmcelroy.com/premium. If you use the code premium live, all one word, you get 7 days for free. You can ask Ken questions. We do happy hours on there. We have a lot of video material on there and courses. So go ahead and check that out. So our first question comes from Josephine. So she lives in the U.S. but inherited 5-unit rental property in the Philippines from her parents. It's fully occupied, but it has a lot of repairs it needs done. She had an offer to buy the property, but that would only allow them to buy 2 other properties. So if she wants to keep it, how does she get the financing to salvage the property? And what would you do?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I don't know what the laws are in the Philippines or around property ownership and or lending. So this is important because I know like I've been involved in properties in Mexico and properties in, let's say, Belize, and it's very, very difficult to get a loan there. So I'm just going to assume that you own this free and clear, but I don't know the answer. And the reason why I bring this up is because typically properties that are have deferred maintenance, a lot of times you can use cash out refinances to fix that stuff. So in other words, you use debt in the form of a cash out refi, which is tax free, and fix those. But really, this boils down to, let's just assume that there's no debt. This boils down to the payout, the return. Even though you might have a lot of repair necessary, you have to take a look at, what do you think that rental market's going to be over time, and how much does it cash flow? So it sounds to me like it. Typically, when properties have a lot of deferred maintenance, either the owners have been pocketing all the cash and not putting money back, giving the property a little bit of love, but that doesn't mean that you can't. So if the property has lots of cash flow, then you should be allocating that each and every month into small little projects and fix that thing over a period of time. I also don't know what the tax laws are around a sale of a 5 and moving into a 2. In the U.S., you probably would have some kind of a tax issue around that, especially, again, getting into tax again. If something's passed on, there's in the U.S. it's called step up in basis, which means that your parents, whatever they bought it for, can transfer to you at a new value, and all of a sudden you don't have to pay the tax on that step up in basis. And so those are two things that you need to find out around tax. In the Philippines specifically, you might be. I know you live in the U.S., but I'm not sure you're a U.S. citizen, so you might have some additional tax there too. Because if you're a U.S. citizen, you're taxed on your worldwide income. So it's a complicated question, but I do love the question. I just don't have enough information.
Our next question on premium is from ST, and they said Tesla made box homes. Tesla made box homes. How are they going to affect the real estate market? And I did a little digging into this, and they're about $50,000 a piece.
Well, you got to understand why they did it. They did it because of affordability, and they're trying to get good people. So, I don't think Tesla, well, I could be wrong, but I don't think Tesla's, trying to go in and be a real estate investor. I think they're doing it to help their company.
Yeah. And I also think, people think the issue is the building when the issue is the land. So you have to still take that $50,000 home and put it on a piece of property and then link it up to all the utilities. Correct. So it's really minimum. It's not going to be affordable. But
no surprise that Elon Musk is trying to tackle a affordability issue for his people that he's trying to hire, because it's a very different scenario if you say, hey, come move here, work for me, and I'll give you a house.
Yep.
Right,
and then he can buy the land and put all of them on it. Yep.
So it's obviously part of his comp package, it looks like. I don't think that there's any long-term implications around this. This is not new. I think Google had to do this, or has been doing this as well.
And a lot of schools and stuff are doing this in the Miami area, where they're putting their teachers in campuses, and
Yeah. So this is kind of a thing now. It's all underpinned around. This is why it's a good time to be a landlord. Is this exact issue, because rents up, mortgages are up, home prices are up, land's up, and everything's up. So, and wage growth is not keeping up. So the smart money is figuring out a way to attract good people, and this is, to make no mistake about it, this is all about him trying to get the best people to work for him.
Yeah,
which is exactly.
He's the biggest investor now in Twitter. He just is the biggest stockholder as of today.
Maybe he can make some changes.
It'd be interesting. Anyways, Leslie was asking, should I buy in an up-and-coming area? It's less expensive than the hotter part of town, but values have been increasing.
Absolutely. Yeah, good for you. That's exactly how you make the most money. Is when areas get overpriced, people move they move just out of town. They move, that little bit of commute, that's 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, even an hour, doesn't become a problem anymore for them. So
Right.
yes, if the key word was up and coming. So,
But how do you know if an area is up and coming? Because I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, this up and coming area," and I'll know the area because it's in Arizona, and I'm like,
yeah. Well, what would you look at?
I don't know. I've always bought in hotter markets, so I guess
It's a good question.
like jobs,
Yeah,
maybe?
jobs, population growth, any kind of services that are there. One of the big ones is school system, childcare, all those kinds of things, convenience to all different things. If you really want to kill it somewhere, take a look at two big metros. Like, let's just pick on, let's say Dallas and Fort Worth. Okay, those are two big cities. There are people that's like an hour. It's the same thing between Austin and San Antonio. Okay, it's an hour basically because I have properties in both. You just take a look at what's happening here, all the way in between. So as Dallas, or so let's say Austin, gets expensive, people start moving further and further along that corridor. Those are really, really great opportunities, and you might have to wait a while for it to make its, and you have to pay attention to what's happening in those markets. But those areas that are up and coming along in transportation and all that kind of stuff, those are always, in my opinion, good long-term ways to look at. The guys that really kill it are the ones that go out and buy 500 or 1,000 acres in the middle of those two cities, let's say, and they wait.
And the ladies that kill it too.
I'm sorry. Yes, you're 1,000% right.
All right. John says, if I have a commercial condo that I want to rent to multiple tenants with a triple net lease, how do I determine the expenses for each leaser?
So you just tie it to the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, and so that you have some kind of a. But that's how it's done in commercial leases. So you don't fix it. You say. So everything moves through. So as things become more, so the landscaping and the parking lot and the exterior and the roofs, and HVACs and all that stuff. As those start to be more, then it's just allocated and passed through the different tenants. So we talked a little bit about this in one of my videos. The CPI is going up, as you guys know. It's the Consumer Price Index, which is reflected for the pricing, so it's actually you just keep that as a general number, and then you can pass all that stuff through, and you're protected. Essentially, the commercial tenants the way it's supposed to be designed is the commercial tenants are supposed to pay for all of your expenses that are passed through, no matter what they are.
Right. And I think too, what he was asking, say you had 3 people renting and they had different size properties. Would you charge them all the same for all that? Or would it be different if one was bigger?
Yeah, no. It's all calculated. So the way the way it should work is based on, let's say, square footage. So, and common area. So CAM, common area maintenance. So you have, it's more of a complicated topic, but if you have let's say a 5,000 square foot tenant, a 3,000 square foot tenant, and a 10,000 square foot tenant, obviously they're not going to pay the same amount. So you just need to take that total and divide it by the percentage, and that's what it is. So they pay their allocable percentage. It's the same way in a condo project. So let's say, like I did a 300 unit condo project in Portland, Oregon, and let's say the water bill is $1,000. Let's say. Well, each person for a common area water pays 1/300. That's how it works. So now you can break it down even further based on square footage if you like. So that's very general. But so the 3 bedrooms would pay a little bit more than the 1 bedrooms, and so it's all based on the total square footage divided by the amount that the tenant has, and then that should get you your percentage.
Nice. I thought that Matt has an interesting comment from YouTube. He said he thinks what's hurting the market is people are working virtually, living in Texas or another cheap city, but getting California tech salaries.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is true. I think a lot of the employers are onto this. I've been hearing that there's been some salary adjustments for that. I've also been hearing that some of the companies are instituting that you can only live, so far away. So the employers are starting to figure this out now. But I think he's right. That's definitely happened.
Yes. And so make sure you guys like the video if you're watching. Also, make sure to check out the webinar on the 18th, kenmcelroy.com/webinar. And then you have your Limitless event coming up in June.
Oh, yeah.
It's what, June 7th, 8th?
No, it's June 9th, 10th, and 11th. 9th, 10th, 11th. That's okay. Yeah, this is gonna be fun, guys. We just got this 14-year-old kid that is gonna be a millionaire this year. We're gonna get him to do a panel with his dad, and so this is Kiyosaki's coming. He's gonna talk. All the Rich Dad advisors, Mark Victor Hansen, Chicken Soup of the Soul. Some of my friends that are professional athletes, like Seth Joyner, is gonna talk about. These are people that are trying to figure out the same kind of stuff that we're all trying to figure out. So it's not necessarily a real estate event completely. It's more of we're going to have crypto people there. We're going to have wealth managers there. We're going to have people talking about oil. All those kinds of things are going to be represented. And there's going to be no selling from stage. It's going to be pure education. So I'm excited about this event because if it turns out the way I hope, which is just pour on the learning. And then if you want to go out to the booth and be sold something, you could certainly do that, but none of that will happen from stage, so it should be fun.
Yeah, and ticket prices are going up next week, so
that's
make
right.
sure
on April 8th, yeah, I think we're well over half sold out. And
on Friday, the ticket prices go up, so make sure you get your tickets before then. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a fun trip to Scottsdale as well, so you should check it out. All right, Juan has a question. He said he'd like to take out equity on his current home to buy a rental. He has the cash, but he'd like to use the bank's money. What do you think?
Well, I think it all depends on how much you're going to leverage the one that you're in and whether you can cover it. So every time I'm looking at doing new debt, I want to make sure that I can cover it. So that's the big thing about debt is you don't just want to ramp up and leverage everything you have if it's not covered. So it's got to be covered debt. And and of course, we don't know what the numbers are. So just know that if you're, and I totally agree with you having cash going into these headwinds that we're facing. We don't know what's going to happen. I certainly don't know for sure what's going to happen. I do think we're heading into this pretty high inflation time. So that cash is going to be a problem. This is where my head is. This is why we ended up buying that rental in Scottsdale.
Yep.
We paid all cash, no debt, just, because I had cash and we had cash. We're sitting on cash. I'd rather have it in an asset. And, we did not know what was going to happen on that, but that house has gone up already close to $100,000. So it's ridiculous what's happening. But again, my cash wouldn't have went up $100,000. Is the point. Yeah. So now I would have to sell it, and I would have to get that money in order to get that. But the point is that I moved it to hard assets. So if you can move money into hard assets and still have a little bit in reserve, I highly recommend that.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
And yeah, definitely. And I want to address something, just some of the interesting YouTube conversation going on right now. Basically, people are kind of interested why you think we're going into stagflation, short version, because you did a video on it, but why that? Because a lot of people are saying that we're going to go into deflation. Yeah. So they want to understand your thoughts on the stagflation.
So, deflation, there's let me walk through the deflation is the opposite of inflation. So that's number one. So it's literally the opposite. Okay. And I'll get there in a second. Then there's disinflation, which means that we still have inflation, but it's less. So let's just say that the government's at 7 or 8 today, and next year it's 6. They're going to say, it's improved, right? It's still 6. It's called disinflation when it gets less. Then we have stagflation. And so you just have to look at the definition of stagflation. And we are in that definition today, period. So it's not an opinion that I have. It's fact. So the definition of stagflation is high inflation, high unemployment, supply shocks, and that's the big one. So you got to take a look at those things. That is where we are. So because of the supply shocks, the sanctions that we're imposing on Russia, and I know, I'm stepping across the pond here, but the point is those are going to show up, guys. So oil is massive. It's a massive thing for the United States. So all of those things, I don't see prices going down because of the supply shocks. Whether it's oil, whether it's building materials, whether it's food, I'm just so I don't think anything's going to be deflationary except things that have already been deflationary. So it's I was confused about this topic, and I started dialing in and trying to learn as much as I can about it. And the best example I heard was, if you think of a balloon that's inflated, that's inflation. It might have a hole in it, and that's called deflation. So if you're inflating and you're deflating at the same time, you can have deflation and inflation at the exact same time. It's not either or. So what deflates? Think of these kinds of things. These deflate. Electronics generally, computers that you buy, those are deflation. When you buy them, they're worth less later. So those are deflation. That is deflation, I mean. So there are things that can deflate, and there are things that inflate. And the question is which one's pulling stronger? And I just don't see a correction coming. There's so much money. Things are so expensive. I think we're heading into a period of a pretty rough inflationary time. And the Fed, think about it, what are their options right now? They have to either slow down the economy somehow, which is not going to be good because, again, now GDP, that rolls right into the stagflation issue, because flat or negative GDP, that's what consumption is. And or rising interest rates, which they already did. And they already said they were going to do again, which is also going to slow down consumption. So I just don't see deflation. And I haven't seen anybody with any facts that have, but I'm certainly open. If somebody has some facts that show me why they see deflation, then, let's talk those through, because I want to learn too.
Yeah, and then the stagflation rolls in where the wages don't increase, right?
Yeah,
rapidly.
Well, so if you think about it, guys, like, here's what's supposed to happen. This makes sense. If we have high employment, then the workers competing for jobs, that in turn should drive wage growth up. That's actually how an economy is supposed to work. So let's say we have very, very low high employment. Well, so people are, as you guys are all growing and people are competing for people, then you have this moderate wage growth. That's how it's supposed to work. And so right now, that's not how it's working. So right now, call it the Great Resignation, call it whatever you want, but unemployment's really high right now. And it's certainly significantly better than it was, of course, during the pandemic, but that's not really a good thing to measure. So, but we definitely have high price increases, high inflation. We have supply shocks, this is exactly what happened in the 70s. This oil embargo is very different. But another thing that is defined by stagflation is war. And I know that's a big uncertainty right now, but we're kind of involved because we issued sanctions. So did other countries, and we'll have to see what NATO, NATO's up to next, and what happens with Russia and Poland. But those are all things to watch. So I think that, I do believe that we're heading into stagflation as a result of those things. If you just look at the fixed definition of what it says, of what it was in the 80s and the 70s, and we're fitting right into that box. And there's lots of stuff on this on the internet. I'm not the only one who believes that that's where we are. I think Barron's had a really good article about this, and Goldman. Goldman Sachs reduced their GDP projections. So this is a very interesting times we're heading into, and unless you guys can figure out some way to stop inflation, I mean, I certainly can't.
Right. Well, you guys, thank you for watching. Make sure you go ahead and hit the like button. I'd like to get to over 200. We're only 32 away. I would really appreciate it. But we'll see you guys. Next week we're going to be in Mexico, but we have something playing for you that you'll really like about building credit. And we'll see you guys after that.
Cheers, guys. Always good chatting.